You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. And I was just reading, I was going through social media, as always, and I scour through all social media because social media, and I'll be honest, I follow a lot of left-leaning outlets, a lot more than I do right-leaning. And that is only because so I can have a good grasp on what the other side is talking about. And I got to be honest, folks, the closer we get to the election, the more bizarre that these comments get. I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I'll find like a meme. You know, a lot of them communicate by memes, and I get it. You know, they're trying to build an audience. It's clickbait. It's really clickbaity stuff. And sometimes you got to wonder how much is this real and how much is this Biden campaign accounts. And so you go to some of these accounts and, you know, you're scrolling through, and I'm trying to find the one I was just looking at because I got to be honest, the comments, something I noticed is really, really bizarre. Hang on, let me see here. We are live, by the way. So, you know, I follow accounts like the Blue Wave Florida. We all know that's not real. There is no blue wave in Florida. That I can assure you. It's the exact opposite down here in Florida. These people thought Florida was a purple state. Not anymore. Not after this last election in 22. It is clear and obvious that Florida is a solid red state. I think Ron DeSantis won every single district and even picked up Broward and Miami and Palm Beach County. Like some of the most bluest of blue counties in Florida are now red counties. So that whole pipe dream of Florida being a purple state is long gone. So, you know, here's one. And in the meme, they have a picture of Blasey Ford, which was the Brett Kavanaugh accuser, which clearly everybody knows by now was one gigantic lie in order to keep Kavanaugh off the bench. And so they used this woman, Blasey Ford, and it's okay because she came out a millionaire. She had raised, I think, over $1 million by the time the whole spectacle was over. And then they got another picture next to her of Hillary Clinton. And then they have another picture of somebody else. I don't know who this woman is. But what they're inferring to, what the message that they're trying to send is that these women warned America Donald Trump is unqualified. Brett Kavanaugh would be unqualified. And then I don't know who this one woman's supposed to represent. But these are the things that I see on Facebook. And I got to say, it's really, really bizarre. I mean, this meme right here got 24,000 likes. And you go through it, and the comments are just so bizarre. I just have to find the one that I just commented on. You're going to have to bear with me here. Of course, as soon as I start the show, my Facebook refreshes. I just had it up because I wanted to read it to you on the show. And now I can't find it. It was a meme. I think it was about, that was an hour ago. Anyways, it was a meme that said unemployment was up. And, you know, the most in the last 50 years, or, you know, one of those memes to where people are trying to find anything, just anything to justify voting for Joe Biden because there's literally nothing. And so they'll come up with a meme like, oh, unemployment's down for the first time in 50 years or something like that. And then you look at the comments and it's like, vote blue, let's go Joe Biden. And you have to wonder, like, how many of these people are real? And I do comment. And I think one of my comments was, I asked these people if they've ever read George Orwell's 1984. because I told them that the comments are really, really bizarre. And I know lefties are listening to the show right now, but you guys act like a bunch of mindless drones, like a bunch of lemmings, like robots. And they're just like hooked up to this talking box, and they just repeat the same thing. Vote blue, let's go Biden, I'm riding with Biden. And I think I left a comment to the one person that said riding with Biden. Yeah, all the way to the nursing home. And of course I left some other few choice comments. But, somebody's got to get in and infiltrate these groups and just kind of like snap these people out of it, because it's like they are so stuck in this echo chamber. It really is bizarre behavior, and I've never, in my entire life, I've never seen anything like this, where you have a very large portion of people that are completely subdued by this Trump derangement syndrome. And it's not just for Donald Trump. It goes so much deeper than just Donald Trump. Like an example would be this judicial scorched earth that we're watching take place in our justice system. The reason why these people are going scorched earth on our justice system is because of Donald Trump. And it's like everything that they are doing is because of Donald Trump. Unfortunately, for the entire country, they are destroying everything in the name of getting Donald Trump. And it's like, it would be one thing if these people were just obsessed with Donald Trump and they hated him, but it was relegated to social media, whatever it is. But no, this Trump hatred is actually starting to seep out into our government institutions. And in fact, that's actually what we're watching. We're watching the culmination of Trump derangement syndrome leaked into our system. And there is no antibody to this. And so you kind of just have to let it play out until like something snaps them out of it. Something's going to give, folks. I don't know what it is, but something is going to give. You can feel it. I can certainly feel it. There's something on the precipice here. It's like a volcano, and it's getting ready to erupt. I don't know what it is, but it's something very sinister. And the Trump derangement syndrome has now infected all of our institutions. It's infected our judicial system. It's infected our Congress. It has infected our local courts and judges and prosecutors and attorney generals, everything. You have Congress right now writing bills and trying to get bills passed in the House. Democrats, of course. But don't get it twisted. There's plenty of Republicans that don't want to see Donald Trump president, because they are a part of what we like to call the uniparty, the establishment. There's people in Congress right now writing bills to fortify these institutions, to fortify the establishment, essentially to put a blockade up, a phalanx against Donald Trump. And so they're trying to essentially prepare the deep state, to prepare the bureaucracy to Trump-proof it, is what they're trying to do. They are trying to Trump-proof the bureaucracy. And they're passing bills, they're changing rules, they're doing all kinds of sinister, crooked stuff to make sure that the establishment is very, very burrowed in by the time Donald Trump gets there. But I don't think it's going to work. But this is the culmination of Trump derangement syndrome. It has left social media. These people do not want to debate anymore. They're done talking. They have been fully indoctrinated, brainwashed by the media to hate Trump more than they love their country. They are so blinded by their hatred to a point to where they can't even notice the actual damage that's being done and who is doing it. And so this is where, you see all the projection from Hillary Clinton. They do these things because they know they can get away with it. This is what I just noticed on social media scrolling through. I know this was a long time trying to explain that, but I try to get into the psyche of what is going on because there is without a doubt, this is a psychological issue we're dealing with. I am a firm believer of this. I don't know how many of you out there agree with me that this is some type of mental disorder, this Trump derangement syndrome, and I think it only affects certain people. Like for me, for instance, Donald Trump does not bother me like that. Like, you know, the stuff that he says, the way that he says it, how he looks, how he walks, like I'm serious. It doesn't bother me. But other people, just the mere sight of him, they want him in prison. I'm serious, folks. These people, they have become so emotionally and psychologically broken, so dedicated to the cause of hating Trump, that they want him in prison and they don't even know why. They cannot tell you why Donald Trump should be in prison. They just say nobody's above the law. He has to be held accountable for his crimes. Like all the talking points that you hear from Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid and MSNBC and Joe and Mika and CNN, like the Borg, like good little robots, good little drones. But it's like the hatred is there. Like, they want to see this guy in prison, and when you ask them why, that is the question that they try to steer away from the most. Because it actually, when you ask that question, and I that is my recommendation to you, my audience, is to, when you're speaking with these people, is to ask them why Donald Trump should be in prison. Just get them to think for themselves. This, I think, is that hurdle we're going to have to take in order to break through to these people. Because, you know, if not, then this is going to go on forever, and this country will never have any peace. Because as soon as it's over with Donald Trump, then you will have officially 14 years, all right? 16 years of complete indoctrination by the establishment media. The Pravda media is what we like to call it here. And so there will be no going back. Donald Trump will be gone, but the Trump derangement syndrome will be fully set in, and these people will be moving on to the next. They'll be fully indoctrinated. And so when Ron DeSantis comes up, and I'm almost positive he's going to after Donald Trump, and let's all just pray that he does. And we do get a 2028 Ron DeSantis, which reminds me of something me and my wife are talking about, Jenna Ellis. But we'll talk about that in a second. But if we don't, there's never going to be any peace, and these people are going to move from Trump derangement syndrome into DeSantis derangement syndrome. It'll be DDS, right? DeSantis derangement syndrome. That is what we're going to be dealing with, and I just feel like these people will be fully indoctrinated, and there's not going to be any peace in this country. The American people are craving peace. They are so thirsty for normalcy. And believe it or not, normalcy comes with Donald Trump. Despite everything that they said, despite all the lies when they said Donald Trump was going to get us in the war, Donald Trump was going to ruin the economy, Donald Trump was going to do this, he was going to do that. None of that happened. In fact, the exact opposite happened. And you have leaders in the Middle East asking why Donald Trump was not being promoted or why Donald Trump was not being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in the Abraham Accords. And so what actually happened is that it was Joe Biden that got us into war. It was Joe Biden that ruined the economy. It was Joe Biden that did everything they said Donald Trump was going to do. And I find it really, really bizarre when people say, I know bizarre is like the word of the day now. I've said it like 100 times because it really is. I really don't know any other way to describe it. It is very weird, bizarre. This talking point that there is a lag. Okay, a lot of people on the left, when you say, yeah, you know, Donald Trump's economy was better, everything was better 3 or 4 years ago during Donald Trump's administration. And they'll say, yeah, but that was actually Obama's administration. So there is this kind of lag effect that the left likes to convince themselves of, that every presidency, there's a 4-year lag. So Donald Trump's administration was actually Obama's, and this administration right now, the Biden administration, is actually Trump's. This is the lag effect, right? This is that talking point that every single leftist uses, and those of you listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then I have to wonder, well, if that's the case, then what happened to the 50 executive orders that Joe Biden signed on day one? What are those? Nothing? Those don't account for nothing? And number two, so does that mean that Barack Obama's first term was actually Bush's term? Bush's administration? See, when you start asking the question, why, then they have to actually think it's impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no 4-year lag to an administration, okay? There may be, I'll give it a couple months, 3-4 months tops, but those executive orders, those are immediate. When Joe Biden signs an executive order, it goes into effect almost immediately, all right? That is why the southern border was dismantled almost immediately. That is why the deficit spending happened almost immediately. We can go through the 29 different executive orders that Joe Biden signed to dismantle the southern border policies, Donald Trump's border policies. Those are all immediate things that happen. What we're experiencing right now is Joe Biden's administration. This is not Trump's economy. This is not Trump's policies. Donald Trump's policies, for the most part, are gone because Joe Biden made it a point to reverse all of Donald Trump's policies because they went in with this anti-Trump attitude that we're going to completely reverse everything Donald Trump did. And this is noted by everybody. This was something that everybody was talking about. Yes, Joe Biden, go reverse Donald Trump's policies. They were cheering for Joe Biden for doing this. They were hailing him as a hero for reversing all the nasty policies of Donald Trump, like the Muslim ban and the border policies and everything. Just go down the list. I don't have the list in front of me, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think there was 50 executive orders signed the first week Joe Biden was in office. And we all seen the video where the executive orders were stacked 2 feet high and Joe Biden was just signing away. And what's really weird is that all those executive orders, when you go back and watch the footage, and I actually got this from one of my followers on TikTok had mentioned this on the comments. The executive orders were blank, and Joe Biden was just signing a blank piece of paper. Very weird, but I think this was a way for them to get executive orders without actually having them written down because they were only in office for like a few days. And so it's impossible for them to be writing executive orders that fast. So I think he was just signing maybe like a kind of ceremonial kind of thing. I don't know. Nothing this administration does, it makes sense. Everything is backwards. And so this, the Trump derangement syndrome made it into our institutions. Joe Biden reversed policies based off the Trump derangement syndrome. And what happens when Trump's policies were actually good and Joe Biden reverses them? Well, you get what we have now, which is a full-blown Biden administration. There's no 4-year lag. There's no 6-month lag. Okay, I'll give you 6 months. But there is no 4-year, 3-year lag on presidents, okay? That's on administrations. It's just not possible. But this is one of those excuses that they use. Anyways, that was something that took way longer than expected, but it was something I did want to share with you. It was something I was thinking about today. I was thinking a lot about the psychology behind what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with normal, rational people, folks. It's just, there's something really wrong with what is going on. And I've been saying this since day one, is that all of this is to blame on the media. If we had an honest media, okay, a media that didn't pick sides on day one, okay, if we had an honest media that actually reported news, that actually reported what was going on instead of shielding Joe Biden and attacking Donald Trump. If we had an honest media, this wouldn't even be happening. Joe Biden wouldn't even be president right now. But instead, we had a media that chose to get Joe Biden, their preferred candidate, across the finish line. They chose sides. They became political. They became biased. And therefore, they are no longer news outlets. They have become propaganda outlets. They are a full-blown appendage of Joe Biden, and not a good appendage. Kind of a nasty sight to think about. Anyways, these people have went full-blown administrative state media, and I blame them for all of this that is happening. The problem I think we're having, and like I said, I thought a lot about this to kind of reduce it down to the main problem, is that the people on the left and the Pravda media trick themselves into thinking certain things are true, and they're just not. So, for example, from day one, these people called January 6th a deadly insurrection. They called it an insurrection even though it wasn't an insurrection. They said Donald Trump was trying to overthrow the election even though he was just challenging the election, just like Democrats. And they convinced themselves of this. And so when they hear the ruling from the Supreme Court, when they hear these cases like the immunity case that was just heard this week, they're completely shocked when they don't get the answer they want. But it's because they've convinced themselves of a lie to begin with. So they build their entire logic is built on a faulty, rotten foundation. That is not true from the very beginning. And so when they hear rulings or when they hear a verdict they don't like, or when they're shocked. And this is why these people are calling the Supreme Court justices criminals, okay, for their arguments on the immunity case and why a president shouldn't be held criminally liable for his official acts as president. Us sane, rational people can see why that's a very, very bad idea. But these people can't seem to get Donald Trump out of their head. They can't see past Donald Trump. This is why I say their hatred for Trump is blinding them. And so these people are willing to go scorched earth, completely destroy our entire country, all norms, all constitutional regularities. Like, they are willing to destroy all of it, but without actually thinking about the long-term effects of their ideology. And so, for instance, they were so die-hard on Joe Biden reversing Donald Trump's border policies, and now look, they could not see past, well, what if Joe Biden actually reversed these policies, and what if those policies were actually good and they were securing our border? Well, what happened? You get exactly what we got now. And so this is, like I said, they trick themselves into thinking narratives that just are not true. And so when months and years go down the line and they get a smack in the face by reality, they're completely shocked. And the cycle starts all over again. They go unhinged, and then they start creating another narrative about something else, and then it goes on and on. It's this cycle of Trump derangement syndrome, and it's not going to go away. They are under the impression that this is going to go away when Donald Trump is gone, and this is just not the case. And the reason why is because Donald Trump is normal. It's these people that have lost their minds. Okay? That's like sane, rational Americans, they've had it. They have had it up to here with the insanity. With the boys can be girls and the girls can be boys, and the boys competing in women's sports, and the sexualizing of the children, and the open southern borders, and how illegal immigration is good for a country, and how constant wars are a good thing, sending $95 billion to a foreign country is a good thing, increasing taxes is a good thing. Like, all this insanity that just 15 years ago, people, sane, rational Americans would have been like, this is nuts. But the left has been completely broken that they think this is normal. This is not normal. And in reality, it's Donald Trump that is going to bring this place down to some normal playing field. Like, where we're not arguing about, if trans strippers are good for elementary students or not. Like, that 15 years ago, I think we all could have agreed that that's a pretty bad idea. But these people have become so anti-Trump that whatever they think Donald Trump would do, they want to do the opposite. And so they think Donald Trump would be, Donald Trump would totally not be for, transing the kids. And so what do they want to do? They want to trans the kids. Donald Trump is for secure borders. So what do they want to do? They want open borders. And so this goes, like I said, so much deeper than what it appears. And I spend a lot of my time trying to break it down to reduce it to its most primal instinct. And I think that's what we're dealing with. I think we're dealing with a mental disorder that has infected a vast portion of our population. And so another example would be they think January 6th was an insurrection. They think that it was some violent attempt led by Donald Trump to overthrow the government to stay in the power. Okay, this is their own delusional rendition of what happened on January 6th. Like these people are delusional. And the media confirmed their delusions. This is what we're dealing with. We are dealing with an affirmation of the left's delusions. And since the media has become a part of the administrative state is like, yeah, keep it up because it's getting us votes, right? Because it's keeping the people divided. Keep up with affirming their delusions, like January 6th was a deadly insurrection that was an attempted overthrow of the United States government. But from the very first day, they believed this. And they have not been smacked with reality yet. And so as we're moving forward in all these court cases, people are just shocked that Donald Trump should be immune for his official acts. It's like, wait, and they keep saying it, but Donald Trump tried overthrowing the government. Donald Trump tried overthrowing the elections. No, January 6th was not an insurrection, okay? This is why he's not being charged with insurrection. Okay, these people are delusional, and they have an entire media apparatus that is affirming their delusions, right? This is why these people cannot turn off CNN and MSNBC, Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid. Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow, they're smart people. They're not idiots. They may act like they're idiots, but they know what they're saying isn't true. Granted, some of the stuff they probably feel really strong about. But like Joe and Mika, they know January 6th was not an insurrection. They know Donald Trump was challenging the election. And Democrats do it all the time. And so the media knows this, but they can't allow their viewers to get smacked in the face with reality. And so what happens is time goes by, and you get a Supreme Court of the United States that says pretty much, yeah, a president that could be held criminally liable after he gets out of office. So in other words, a president that could be prosecuted by his political opponents is probably not a good idea, right? There's going to be lasting consequences of something like that. But these people are like, what? What do you mean? That can't be, but we just watched Donald Trump. He was trying to overthrow the government. The January 6 protesters were trying to overthrow the government. This is why they think that these J6 protesters should rot in prison for the rest of their life. You go through the comments, and I'm serious about this. I am not joking. I read the comments, and they say that these protesters should be executed because they are trapped in their own delusions. And the media is affirming that delusion every single day. They tell their viewers that Donald Trump should be held liable for trying to overthrow the government and inciting an insurrection and trying to, stay in power. But none of it was real from the very first day. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what I think we're dealing with. And so when reality really smacks them in the face, they just can't believe it. And it enrages them more. So now the Supreme Court justices must be on Donald Trump's side. They must be criminals. They must be biased. It's like, no, they're just looking at the law, which, mind you, is a case that should have never been brought there to begin with because it's completely insane that these people would even bring this case to the court. And I think the Supreme Court, I'm right there with Mark Levin. I think the Supreme Court shouldn't have even taken this. These people, if they would have taken this case, these people should have spent 1 hour scolding the prosecution, scolding the people arguing this case, and saying, don't ever bring this case in front of our faces again. This is a disgrace to this country. Jack Smith is a disgrace to the law. He is a disgrace to lawyers all over the country, and he should be disbarred. This is the second time Jack Smith has brought some bogus BS crap to this court, and he should be kicked out of law for trying to bring this frivolous case to the United States Supreme Court. That's what they should have done. But they played along, and so now here we are. As if the 9-0 ruling on removing Donald Trump from the ballot wasn't enough. These people just want more and more and more because they are trapped in their delusions. And it's not just CNN's viewers. The very institutions themselves are trapped in this delusion that January 6th was an insurrection. Donald Trump tried overthrowing the election so that he can stay in power, even though none of it happened. Okay, January 6th was a riot, okay, where you had some violent people there. Yes, there's a lot of nuances to January 6th. Not everybody there was trying to overthrow the government in a violent insurrection. That is not the case. It never was the case from the very beginning. It was a handful of people out of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands from the reports I'm reading. It was the biggest rally, I think, ever in Washington, D.C. Like a 500,000 or maybe even 1 million people there, something crazy like that. I don't know. Don't fact check me on the numbers. I don't have them in front of me. But it was big. And you had a tiny fraction of people there that got violent. And so this means that this was a violent insurrection and that all these protesters should be locked up in prison forever? No. No. From day one, the media called this something that it wasn't. And they have been building on it and building on it and building on it. And so when they get a ruling from the Supreme Court, they get a solid dose of reality smacked right in their face. They can't control it. And so what happens? It escalates. And so now the Democrats and the Pravda media are now trying to convince their viewers that the Supreme Court is broken and that these justices must be in the tank for Donald Trump. And so what that means is that if Joe Biden wins, they're going to pack the court. That's what they're going to do. They're going to use this as a prerequisite they're going to use this as an excuse to pack the court. They're going to say we have to get rid of these justices or we have to add balance to the Supreme Court because these 6 justices said that January 6th said that Donald Trump should be immune from inciting a deadly insurrection on the Capitol, that Donald Trump should be immune from trying to overthrow our elections and overturn our elections. That's what's happening right now. And the media is affirming their delusions, and it's going to spiral and spiral and spiral. So the only thing that we can do, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to have to be done very carefully, but very, very boldly. All these people, these judges, these prosecutors, Jack Smith, the judge at Engoron, Judge Merchan, or whatever his name is in New York that's dealing with this Trump case, Joe Biden, everybody that was involved, Weissman, all the deep state players that were involved, Michael Colangelo, all of them, they need to be held accountable. They need to be brought up on charges for trying to violate people's civil rights. These people need to be held accountable, or this is never going to stop, and this country is never going to see peace, and it will continue on until there's some type of civil war. All right? I am not trying to fearmonger people. I'm just telling you what I think is going to be the inevitable if we do not start holding these people accountable for these egregious acts. They don't think what they're doing is egregious, folks. They are stuck in their delusion. It's like trying to convince a drug addict that they're an addict and they have a problem. You can't do it. It's impossible. These people think they don't have a problem and that they can control it. They are, and I'm serious, they are literally suffering from their own delusions. And unless these people are held accountable, it's never going to stop. And here's the thing that I fear, is that these people honestly, truly do think that they're not doing anything wrong by bringing these frivolous cases to the Supreme Court, by targeting Donald Trump with not 1 or 2 or 3, but 4 indictments with like 94 charges and 700 years in prison. They think they're not doing anything wrong. And so it's got to be done carefully. But every single one of these people need to be held accountable for what they have done. They have caused great harm to this country. Great harm. This will go down, okay? The Democratic Party from 2015 to 2024 will go down as one of the most damaging political factions that this country has ever seen. They have caused irreparable damage. They have caused irreversible damage to this country. They have done things. They have broken constitutional norms that can never be undone. Okay? They have done things that can never be taken back. All right? This country will have scars lingering forever. We will be feeling the effects of this bad law that's happening right now. This judicial scorched earth is my new name for it. I'm done with lawfare. I think that term is overused. We need to come up with a new name for this, because lawfare is actually like, it's not illegal. I mean, yes, it's dirty, but lawfare is an actual real thing. No, what they're doing here is scorched earth lawfare. And so I think the new name needs to be judicial scorched earth. Ruining the law, it's almost like a battalion of tanks going in and just leveling an entire town. Okay? Airdrops from fighter jets, they are airstriking an entire town with their own people in it. Like, they are going scorched earth, because to them, leveling the town is more important than the handful of soldiers that they have in there. So scorched earth. This is judicial scorched earth, because they are destroying the very institutions that this country was founded on, the very institutions that protect us in the future. Folks, they want to strip immunity from the President of the United States, essentially nullifying the executive branch. This will mean that every single president from here on forward, from both sides, doesn't matter which side, will always have their enemies breathing down their neck, will always have this on their conscience when they are ruling this country and when they are leading this country, maybe in a war or whatever the case is. But they have to fear of being prosecuted and being locked up when they leave office. This is going to cause many, many problems in the future. And in fact, I think all 6 justices pointed out this. They touched base on this. I think it was Alito and Kavanaugh that said, well, what's to prevent a president from, trying to overthrow an election and trying to remain in power out of fear of being prosecuted and sent to prison after leaving office? And the argument, of course, the reason they gave was, oh, well, there's going to be guardrails in place so that, not any prosecutor can just go in and charge a president for a crime. It's like, wait a minute, but that's exactly what's happening now. What's happening with Alvin Bragg and Donald Trump in New York City is Donald Trump's best defense. And I just find it so ironic. I mean, it's so rich that the same day that these people are arguing that a president would have safeguards from being, prosecuted criminally after leaving office, because we have a legit system. Like, we have levels, we have prosecutors that, uphold the law, we have judges. And so the president would have all these layers of defense against him. But yet Donald Trump is being prosecuted by his political opponent right now in New York City, where you have a rogue judge that's a Democrat, an opposition. You have a rogue attorney general that's a Democrat, the opposition. You have a rogue prosecutor. Like, all the guardrails that these people are claiming are going to protect Donald Trump, are going to protect the president, are actually gone now, because they have been hijacked by Democrats, the opposition, to target a former president. And so can you imagine the type of damage that would be caused by stripping immunity from the executive branch? The executive branch would be essentially ran by a prosecutor and a judge. I mean, think about that. If a judge and a prosecutor came together and coordinated and colluded with other institutions inside the system in order to, blackmail a president or to send a warning or a shot across the bow saying, hey, you make this move, you send that airstrike, and we're waiting for you, buddy, as soon as you get out of office. You see what I mean? And you might say, well, that's impossible. That would never happen. How likely is it that a prosecutor and a judge would collude and coordinate with one another to go after a former president? Oh, the irony, right? It is incredible. So anyways, this is what I was thinking about today. I was actually thinking about a lot of stuff today, and that was, I would play the audio for you from Justice Alito and Justice Kavanaugh and Justin, and really I want you to hear the opposition too, because Ketanji Brown Jackson, the Supreme Court justice that was nominated under Joe Biden, she sounds just like a radical leftist. And I have to remind you that this was the Supreme Court justice that couldn't define what a woman was when asked. She could not answer basic constitutional questions when asked by the nomination board. By the, when the senators and congresspeople, when they ask questions. I'm not really sure who it is asking the questions, but it is the board. I think it's the Judiciary Committee. Asking basic constitutional questions, and this woman couldn't answer them. Folks, she could not answer, she could not define what a woman was. You guys remember this? She says, no, I can't define what a woman is because she's not a biologist. This is what we're dealing with. Well, I'm not a zoologist, but I can tell you what an elephant is. And this is what we're dealing with. This was a Supreme Court justice. And what really terrifies me deep down into my soul is Democrats getting control of the Supreme Court. That is our last defense right now, folks. That is it. The Republicans and the American patriotic, red-blooded people in this country, their only defense, their last line of defense is the Supreme Court of the United States right now. That's it. It is clear and obvious we do not have judges. It is clear and obvious we do not have prosecutors to protect us. We do not have a justice system to protect us. All these institutions have been overtaken because of this delusion that anybody that would vote for Donald Trump or anybody that supports Donald Trump must be like Donald Trump, or they must be bad people and be locked away, kind of like the thousands of January 6 protesters, most of whom weren't even violent, went in to take a couple selfies. We've heard the stories. We've talked about it on the show a lot. You have a grandma that was just sentenced, I think, to 2 or 4 years in prison for taking a selfie in the Capitol. A grandma. She's like 74 years old. Yeah, she's going to prison. And not only that, but the Supreme Court of the United States is our last defense. It is the only way that we can resolve any of these issues. It is our last recourse. There's nothing left. All the guardrails that the framers put in place, all the institutions, all the things that are supposed to protect the American people have now been destroyed. This is what's going on. They are setting such bad law. They are breaking so many constitutional norms that by the time they're done, there won't be anything left. And so the Supreme Court, I believe, and everything that's holy to me, sees what we see. They know, they understand what time it is. I think they know and understand this. Based off of what I gathered listening to the 2.5-hour argument on immunity, I think the Supreme Court justices know very well what is on the horizon if they allow this to continue. They know that the court's going to be dismantled as soon as Democrats win. They know that the filibuster is going to be removed. They know that Democrats are going to add 2 more states so that they never lose power again. The Democrats are trying to criminalize politics. They're trying to criminalize elections, challenging an election. That is what Donald Trump did. So for the leftists out there listening, Donald Trump did not try and overthrow the elections. Donald Trump challenged the election with every tool in his toolbox. And when there was no tools left and all options were exhausted, what happened? Donald Trump left. He did not have to be removed from the White House in handcuffs. They did not have to drag him out, just like the media said that they were going to have to. None of this happened. It was all a delusion that was embedded into the brains, into the psyche of millions of Americans. And the Supreme Court knows this. I've wrote the Supreme Court several times, begging them to protect us. And I've read a couple letters on the show that I've wrote them. And I know I'm not the only one. I know what you're feeling. I see what you're seeing. I do. We're all feeling the same thing. This is insanity. What we're going through is the borderline of a society in collapse, is what we're watching. And it's in collapse for one reason and one reason only. Because the media has convinced millions of Americans that Donald Trump is the next coming Hitler. He's a dictator. All the stuff that they said in 2015 and 16, they're saying again. And these people will not stop because they can't get Donald Trump off their brains and because they make a whole lot of money talking about Donald Trump. Their only existence in this world is to talk about Donald Trump. If CNN and MSNBC did not talk about Donald Trump, what would they talk about? The economy? Would they talk about the Hamas supporting protests in the colleges and university? Donald Trump is the only thing keeping these places afloat. They know this. The media knows this. They know that if without Donald Trump, they're done. Okay? They're done. They have lost way too much credibility, and this is what happens when you pick sides. So maybe some of them have learned their lesson, and the ones that have gotten out of there, and I'm talking about Fox as well. Even though Fox doesn't even hold a candle to the leftist Pravda outlets like CNN and MSNBC, Fox will actually talk about news that's going on. Okay, of course they got their Trump, the Trump fans. Of course, it's Fox. But nothing like CNN and MSNBC. And so the Supreme Court sees all of this going down. They're human beings. They watch the news. They read letters, hopefully mine. Okay, they got social media. I think they probably do have social media. I would imagine they do. I think they have like undercover social media accounts for sure. They have to. They have to have some type of connection with the rest of the country. But I think they see exactly what we see. They know exactly what's going on. And are they going to give the ruling that we want on the immunity thing for Donald Trump? I don't know. You know how I feel about it. They should have rejected this thing right out the gate. Okay, right out the gate. They should have said this case is disgusting. This is a disgusting work of justice. You guys are destroying the justice system, and we never want to see this again. And Jack Smith should be disbarred for the second time, bringing a disastrous case, a disgusting piece of justice to this courtroom. That's what they should have said. They should have scolded these people, and it should have been a 9-0 ruling right out the gate. Done, over with. Just get these people to think about what they're doing. That is the hardest part to me. Trying to break through to these people with some reason and rationale is it's impossible. It is impossible for them to get Donald Trump off their brain. If they can and this is what our efforts need to be. When you're talking to your Biden voters, your Biden friends, when you're talking to your Democrat friends or Democrat family, ask them basic questions. Don't argue with them. Don't try and debate them because it's not going to work. What you need to do is you need to ask them the who, what, where, when, and why. When they say something like, well, Donald Trump tried to overthrow the election, ask them, well, how? How did he do it? What did he do? Right? Why did he do it? This, I think, if we take this approach to these debates, if we take this approach to the other side, and we just get them to think for themselves, then it'll break this fever that we're going through. And I think this Supreme Court ruling or this Supreme Court case on immunity is one of those things that are breaking this fever. And I think accountability, when Donald Trump gets in the office, is going to break this fever. I think by all these people being held accountable for these egregious cases, this egregious conspiracy to violate people's civil rights by prosecuting Donald Trump or prosecuting Joe Biden's political rival. And this is all being led by Joe Biden, by the way. I don't think Joe Biden is as dumb as he appears. I know it's hard to say that when you look at him. Yeah, I think he's a mumbling, bumbling fool. But Joe Biden has been in politics for 50 years. And nobody stays in politics for 50 years and doesn't know how to cut some throats. Doesn't know how to play dirty. Joe Biden knows how to play dirty. He recommended the Logan Act for General Flynn. And General Flynn was the biggest threat the establishment had. And I think there's a movie coming out soon about General Flynn and what he knew and just how big of a threat he was to the military-industrial complex. And this is why they had to get rid of him. So Joe Biden's perfectly capable of lawfare. And I think Obama's involved. All the dirty actors, the same names that were involved in the Russia collusion hoax, they're involved in this too. The Colangelos, the Lisa Monacos, the Podestas, just go down the list. The Pomerantz, all the names that sound familiar. Okay, James Clapper, John Brennan, all these people are the ones behind all this conspiracy, this giant conspiracy to remove Joe Biden's political rival for the election, to sway an election. They are using the justice system and the administrative state to remove Joe Biden's political rival, to wrap him up in court, to try and imprison him like we're living in Germany in the 1930s. Okay, this is what is happening. But in order for these people to get a dose, in order for these people to see this, in order for this insanity to stop, these people are going to have to get smacked with reality. You notice nobody's talking about removing Donald Trump off the ballot anymore. Well, why is that? Probably because they got a big fat dose of reality right upside their head. And that is what's going to happen with this after Donald Trump gets elected. He needs to hire the most savage but very meticulous and very surgical attorney general to ever exist in this country's history. I'm talking the best. And this person needs to go in. He needs to investigate. He needs to get all the internal communications, documents, emails, phone calls, text messages, everything. Video footage, security cameras. I'm talking about the most sophisticated investigation in U.S. history. Okay? A federal RICO charge on all these people. They need to be held accountable, and everybody needs to see that this was all a delusion, it was all a lie, and it was all in the name of getting rid of the guy that was going to bring down the deep state. The guy that was trying to bring normalcy to this country. That is what we're dealing with. And so that's what I wanted to get on here and talk about. I literally came on with no show notes. I just went off the cuff on today's show. I'm going to be doing another legit show after this. We got a lot to get into. I was actually going to talk about Judge Eileen Cannon. Speaking of courageous judges, that is what this country is lacking right now. Our institutions, our political party, the GOP, the Republicans, we're lacking courage. We need more courage. And I got to tell you, Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida dealing with the Trump document case, she may be the wedge. She may be the tip of the wedge that just busts this whole thing open. The entire conspiracy. Because she's starting to release unredacted evidence. Yes. So Jack Smith and the dirty players in this conspiracy were trying to redact every single piece of evidence they were submitting to the courts. And so Donald Trump couldn't defend himself, and the American public didn't have transparency. And this judge, Eileen Cannon, was like, we're showing the American people exactly what is going on here. Because if you're going to destroy their country and their justice system, if you're going to remove their candidate from the ballot, all right, if you're going to destroy their elections, if you're going to do this, the entire country is going to see exactly who's doing it and how they're doing it. And I got to say, what she released so far is pretty damning when it comes to this conspiracy to get Donald Trump a long time ago. I'm talking just a few months after Donald Trump left office. These people were planning this conspiracy back in April, March of 2021 to entrap Donald Trump in this documents case. They were planning this from the very first day, and this judge just showed everybody that that's exactly what Jack Smith and the Department of Justice was trying to hide. That's what they redacted. And they are pissed off that this judge released it to the public. And she's going to get more. And honestly, I don't see how this case even sees the light of day by the time all this stuff gets redacted and everybody can see just how dirty these games were, just how sinister, how sick these people were, and how deranged they were to get Donald Trump. And that's what I wanted to talk about in the next show. We're going to get in deep. I want to go over who is Judge Eileen Cannon. We have talked briefly about her before on the show, but I want to go into her background, and it's actually no surprise why she's doing what she's doing once we go through her background. And I also want to get into some insane laws that are being passed in Canada right now, and some interesting conspiracy about Justin Trudeau being the son of Fidel Castro. It's actually, folks, when I tell you it is mind-blowing, it's mind-blowing. You're going to be shocked after you hear what I found when it comes to Justin Trudeau and Fidel Castro. It's very, very shocking. And listen, it's just a theory. It's just a conspiracy theory, but I got to say, you know how it is with the conspiracy theories on this side, man. What starts out as a conspiracy theory ends up being just a conspiracy weeks or months later. And so, pretty interesting stuff. But the main topic is their wild censorship laws that they are passing over in Canada. I'm talking, I think the title of one of the articles I was reading was the censorship laws that would make Stalin blush. So, yeah, pretty insane censorship laws going up in Canada. So that's those were the two topics I wanted to get into on the next show. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in to the show. I have to say, I was going to do an episode where we go through some of the messages of you, my followers, on social media, on TikTok. And I wanted to read some of the comments because, man, I have some of the funniest, I have some of the smartest followers on my TikTok. That, I mean, it just makes me so proud to be an American, having some of you guys follow me. I am so impressed all the time with the comments, and honestly, I learn so much from you guys when I go through the comments. It's really awesome. So I actually wanted to spend a little bit of time on the next show and go through some of my content and go through some of the messages. And you know, some of my followers, you know, they're pretty diehard, and so when they're pretty savage on their comments when talking about this stuff. So, but I wanted to go through some comments. I love my followers. I love the audience. I have to have the best group of followers in the country. There's no doubt about it. I learn so much from my followers. I mean, you guys know more than I do. You guys teach me stuff about what is going on. And maybe, listen, that is because us people on the right, we have to be so up to date and informed with everything that is going on. Because I think people on the right, like, we realize that we're in an information war right now. And so, like, we like to arm ourselves and prepare ourselves with knowledge and facts so that we're ready, because We are the critical thinkers. We question everything. Everything. But the crazy thing is they end up being true. And this is why I think my audience, you, my followers, are so up to date and informed with all of this stuff. And it really does make me proud to fight with you by my side in this information war. It really does. And I am so grateful for you guys listening to my show. I'm so grateful for my followers. I'm so grateful for your comments, your kind comments, and the savage ones too. My constructive critics out there. I love all of you. And I have to say, I think I have the best group of followers that there is in conservative podcasting. So, and I know you guys listen to other podcasts like Mark Levin and Steve Bannon and Dan Bongino, but you're in good company here. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I just want to thank you, and I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate you. And I want to go through your comments on the next show. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to play the content that you commented on, and then we're going to go through some of the comments. It's going to be really fun. I think you're going to like it. So pretty funny stuff on there. So without further ado, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. We got a lot more to get into on the next show, and the next show, and the next show. So much to get into. And it's just nonstop here. We got our foot down on the pedal, and we ain't stopping for nothing or no one. So we're going to keep it moving. So if you guys want to support the show, download this podcast. If you're listening for the first time, if you could, I'd appreciate it. Download the podcast. All you have to do is just, whichever platform you listen to, go to the search bar, type in my name, Steven with the V. Really, you can just type in Torriello, because there is no other podcaster with the last name Torriello. That I can guarantee you. So just type in Tauriello. You'll find my show, and just hit the little bell. I think it's an Apple. It's a bell, I think. I'm not sure. Just set it up to where it gives auto downloads. That way, whether you're listening or not, the show automatically gets downloaded so that you can listen whenever you want. And it actually does help out the show a lot too. Helps with the algorithm and all that good stuff. So, yes, if you want to support the show, download the show and leave a comment, leave a review, leave a 5-star review, and leave me a comment on Apple Podcasts as well. I like getting comments on Apple Podcasts. I like getting your comments anywhere. You guys are the best. Like I said, I can't say it enough. And if you guys want to reach out to me directly, you know how to do it on social media. But sometimes I don't always get through all the comments, because there's a lot sometimes, especially on TikTok. So the best way to get a hold of me directly is just sending me an email. That's steventorrielloshow@gmail.com. And I will respond back to you. And in fact, I wanted to do a show about a story one of you sent me. And it's actually quite interesting about hydrogen energy, and one of the creators of hydrogen energy. But I actually wanted to wait until I could get him on the phone for an interview. And so I'm working on that. And if we can't get him on the show, then we'll just go ahead and do the story. But it's pretty interesting. I think you'll like it. And I want to do more sciencey stuff. I want to get into a lot other. I don't want to do all just political stuff all the time. I think it's kind of a drag, but it's just that time, folks. It is the moment we were born for. Is this time right now. We were all born to fight in this battle right now. But again, all right, before I ramble on here for another 30 minutes, thank you guys once again for tuning in. As always, I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great weekend. Make sure you get some rest on Sunday, and I will talk to you guys here in a little bit. So God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.